A lot to talk about when it comes to travel, and I think the obvious place to start is just with these thousands of flight cancellations. Glenn, I would love some color on rebookings from what you're seeing on your platforms. What percentage of travelers who have seen their flight canceled are rebooking for the next date versus just canceling altogether and reclaiming and asking for a refund? I think that would provide some level of insight around the desire for travel and also the tolerance to sort of deal with all these changes.
Yeah, it has been a little bit of a mess, let's say. I mean, you have weather obviously has been a problem out in the West in the U.S. And unfortunately, these cancellations have been troubling for a lot of passengers. I don't have the data right in front of me, but we know, unfortunately, some people have been very inconvenienced. And it's really a sad thing, but Omicron is taking its toll on staffing, and it's difficult, and you have to obviously fly safely. So if an airline doesn't have the appropriate staffing, it can't get that plane up in the air, and unfortunately, they have to cancel that flight. And also, the holiday season is the worst because things are so crowded to begin with. There's not a lot of flexibility. Of course, people, if you're out of place, you went to visit grandma and grandpa somewhere, you got to get rebooked to get home. But people who are just about to begin their vacation, they may decide, I'm going to rebook for later in the year. And I understand that.
So from what I'm hearing from you is that it is discouraging some travelers from booking trips. You think that starts to show up in the first quarter of 2022, Glenn?
Well, I don't know. And I'm not sure people are really that discouraged. I mean, obviously the numbers sound big, but as a percentage of total flights, it's a rather low number. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue at all. Look, we know people love to travel. We know people want to travel. Whenever there is any sort of restriction on travel, it's dropped. People immediately book for more travel. So I know there's that built up demand. And I know as long as people can travel, if they're going to travel, I'm not concerned about a lack of demand. What I hope for is that we can get more people vaccinated so people can be safer, and then we'll have more travel.
Speaking of vaccinations, Dr. Fauci on the tape saying that airlines should start requiring passengers to be fully vaccinated in order to travel. I'm curious if you agree with him, and if that actually goes into place, how that could sort of limit the number of travelers that book trips on your site.
It's an interesting thought. Look, one of the things I always thought to try and encourage more vaccination would be if we made the lines at TSA faster. If you have your vaccination already in order, and if you don't have vaccination, the line was a lot more, that may provide some vaccination. Now, obviously, Dr. Fauci's gone for a little bit higher level, saying nobody can get on the plane unless you're vaccinated, or suggesting that. It's an interesting thing. Look, I spoke to Scott Kirby. He's the CEO of United Airlines a couple of weeks ago, and I just told him how much I admired him when he went out and he got his entire employee force vaccinated. And I said, Scott, that's really great. And what did you see? He said, look, when people were required to get vaccinated, they started getting vaccinated. So maybe Dr. Fauci has a point.
Okay. At the same time, we're watching the CDC shortening the isolation period for those who test positive. Day 5 now, right? What are people in the travel world saying about how this could affect demand for travel? I guess I have some friends who are now on day 9 of being positive for COVID saying, you know what, day 5 I could have traveled. I didn't have to wait this long.
Yeah, no, look, it's an encouraging thing to shorten that period of quarantining. And obviously, it's confusing. People have to really look at those suggestions, make sure they understand it, whether you're symptomatic or asymptomatic, were you vaccinated, were you not vaccinated. It's a little bit confusing. So please understand what the rules are before you just decide to go out and travel.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.